Welcome to Good Dates Gone Bad. I'm your host, Lee, and this is my guest.
Nicole from the Redacted Apostate.
Welcome. And just like before, we're going to talk about one of her deal breaker dating stories, and then we're going to read one from the book. So why don't you tell me what you think is a good date? What does it mean to have a good date?
A good date is where you both you have good conversation, you're on equal terms, and everybody kind of understands what you're looking for, and you have good conversation. For me, it's the conversation is the most important of a good date.
Okay, what about a bad date?
A bad date is when you sit in silence or somebody makes fun of you.
Sure.
For
nobody would like that.
For liking Ricky Martin.
Like they're teasing you the whole time?
Yeah.
And they don't let up?
Yeah, I don't like that. I don't like that.
So this happened to you?
Oh, yeah, on another day.
They tease you because you like Ricky Martin.
Because I like
Who
Ricky
doesn't
Martin.
like Ricky Martin?
I love Ricky Martin. Oh, it's a funny story. I had my whole wall when I was 12, all Ricky Martin, because I was in love with Menudo. In love with Ricky Martin. I was so sad when I found out he was gay.
Yeah, but then when he was gay and all big and buff, no one recognized him as Ricky Martin, but he was hot.
Yeah.
Actually, I went out with a guy that looked just like Ricky Martin, and he made the book. That's for totally another day. But yes, we will be reading that story.
Oh, I love Ricky Martin. He's so sexy.
Yeah. So tell me about one of your good dates gone bad.
So it was over a period of time, and my channel is about growing up in a cult and where cults meet crime, true crime.
Sure.
And so this story is when I was really deep in a cult, which I don't really talk about very often. I'm more interested in other cults.
Thank you for offering to share that story. That's a big deal.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't really talk a whole lot about kind of my background, what happened. But in the cult that I was raised in, everything is controlled. Your behavior is controlled, and specifically around sex and marriage and all of that. You're in this little bubble within a bubble.
So it's not like normal religion where religion can be controlling anyway. You're going to go to hell, right? You're going to go to hell if you drink. You're going to go to hell if you have sex. It's not like that. It's worse.
It's way worse because you're under a microscope and you're always trying to please the elders of your congregation. And if you displease them, you could lose your status within the congregation. So you're always kind of in this battle of hierarchy of trying to be perfect. And when it comes to dating, it's even harder because one of the big rules is no sex before marriage. And so when you live in that kind of environment, everyone gets married very young and very quickly.
Because the hormones are raging and it's totally normal to have sex.
Exactly.
Hello.
And you don't know, if you're waiting till marriage, you don't know what it is you're getting into. You have no idea. It's just so confusing.
Not like today, you try before you buy. There you
have
get.
to. And that's such a better, more healthy way
It
to
is.
approach relationships.
It is.
But when you're in a cult, and if you have sex before marriage, you get excommunicated. So then you get shunned by your family. So you have to walk this fine balance of, I have to date this person, but I can't go too far. Like you have to know where the boundary is. And even if your elders decide that you've crossed a boundary, they can shun you, even if you haven't had sex.
So the boys have the same rules as the girls.
Yep.
So boys aren't allowed to have sex either.
Nope.
And there is no sneaking around and boys find someone that's willing that maybe they already got excommunicated. None of that.
No. And then there's that whole guilt. So say if you kind of push the boundary a little bit, you didn't have sex.
But isn't that religion? I mean, religion throws the guilt in there.
Yeah.
Gonna go to hell.
Yeah. Yeah. But this
God's watching you.
God's watching you, and you have to confess. So if you confess, and then it's even worse because then you go in front of a group of men as a woman, and they want to know every single detail.
All the details.
Yeah.
Of course they do.
It's just so gross.
That's gross.
Typically, people in the cult that I was raised in would get married between 17 and 21. So that was the age that, just because of hormones, like you said. And I didn't fit that mold. Between 17 and 21, I was traveling.
Yeah.
And I wasn't looking for a mate. I wasn't looking for sex. I didn't even really think, I was a late bloomer. I didn't even think about any of that stuff. So when I was about 22, 23, I started to
So you started becoming interested. Your body was interested, so you became interested. Sure.
Exactly. But there was no one left.
In their group.
Yeah, in my
But there were plenty out there while you were traveling.
Yeah, but
you never met anyone when you were traveling?
I did, but I wasn't interested in them, which is so sad. Like, I traveled Europe and the Philippines and all over. And
so then what? So they let you leave the tribe, the group, but they were like, okay, we're watching you. We trust you.
Yeah, just don't have sex.
Wow.
Because if you have sex.
Next. So then what happened?
So I was about 23, and another member of the same cult was living in a compound in New York. So he was living in the compound where he was basically doing free labor for the religion. And he left the compound and came back to where we were. So he had missed that 17 to 21 window also. And,
good.
And we met. We had known each other kind of growing up, and I always had kind of a little crush on him because I kind of knew him.
Perfect.
Yeah, and so we...
So y'all were both virgins.
Both virgins. As a virgin, is there something more than a virgin? I don't even know.
I don't know. Well, there are other stages of virginity. We all have heard that.
Yeah, no, we were as...
Like no touching, no nothing. Yeah, there was nothing.
Nothing.
Okay.
Nothing. We didn't even know what... I didn't even know what to do with anything.
Oh.
So he came back from New York, and we kind of hit it off. It was like, oh yeah, I really like you.
Plus you had a mutual connection.
Another thing in the church too is that they called it, how is your spirituality? But your spirituality really meant what's your ranking in the cult. Are you higher up in the cult? Are you lower down in the cult? Kind of what's
you
your
were
status?
like a nun, ma'am.
Yeah. So my spirituality,
and he was like a priest.
Yeah. So our
except you didn't like cater to people in that way, but that's right. Your physical spirituality was intact.
Exactly. And because it was how we got ranked in the cult. So we were, in every sense, we were equals. So we were kind of like a really good match in that sense. Because he had worked at the compound. I was doing everything for the cult when I was preaching full time, and I had given my whole life to this cult.
Wow. And where was this cult? Do you mind me asking?
Where was it? So I was in northern Utah, southern Idaho, but I wasn't Mormon. I was a Jehovah's Witness, and I was preaching to migrant workers that were working in those fields. So I was working on creating a Spanish-speaking congregation to the migrant workers in southern Idaho, northern Utah.
Okay.
That's, if you know the area, it's very fertile. There's a lot of stuff that grows in that area. So that's where I was.
When I lived in Idaho, I lived in Rexburg and Idaho Falls, which is right there on the Blocky L part that's right there by Wyoming. So like the Sandhills and the what is it, that city? Jackson Hole, Wyoming. We would go there all the time. We had to go through Driggs and all the way over there. That's cool.
Yeah, I was further south. I was kind of like right on the Utah border. And I was based out of a city called Layton, Utah. Oh, no, not Logan, Utah.
Yeah, Logan, Utah. Oh, I used to live in Logan, Utah. You have to get through Smithfield to get to Logan, Utah.
Yeah, and then Preston, Idaho.
And Logan, Utah is where the Utah State is. Yep. And I lived there so that I could get residency to go to Utah State.
Yep. Good
and
school.
Then didn't happen. Story for another day.
Yep. If you know Logan, I used to live in the island. Do you remember the island?
No.
Where it was like a sunken inn with waterways around it. It was a cool part of town.
I lived over where there were canals, and I used to pick the apples off the tree.
That's the island, yeah.
To make apple pie.
Yeah. Yep. Cool part of.
Yeah.
But it's like very fertile. That's where there's onions and potatoes.
Oh, yeah. Lots of dairy, lots of farm life. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So you lived over there? That's interesting.
Yeah. Huh. Yeah, but I was a Mormon. I was there preaching to migrant workers that were working in the fields. So I was working on those dairy farms out in the fields. They would have, where the fields were, they would have what you would call barracks, where migrant workers would
Sure.
work, and I would go preach to them, to those
It's
migrant
almost
workers.
like slaves.
Yeah. Yeah.
The modern day version of what the blacks had gone through, except they're not being beaten, right?
Yeah.
Or starved. They have like camp. They have like a campground
Yep. Exactly.
with cabins,
Trailers.
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 Okay.
Lots of trailers. Yep. And then some of them, there used to be a big meat processing company in Logan, and a lot of Hispanic people worked there. So they would go from the fields, and then they would go to the meat packing.
Well, they're known for their beef, and they're known for their Aggie beef and Aggie dairy farm, because they're known for their ice cream.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. It's so funny because now we're talking, and I
I
have
know
the
all about
smells.
it.
Like I can remember the smells coming back to
Yeah.
me from when I was out in the fields.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he moved to Logan to do the same thing, to help build the Spanish-speaking congregation in Logan and Preston, Idaho, is kind of what we were doing. So we started dating, but it had to be hush hush. We couldn't tell anyone. We would tell our families.
But how does anybody ever date in this damn religion?
It's very complicated. It was very complicated because there's rules. There's like the rule of no sex, right? That's the big rule. But then there's all kinds of unwritten rules. And if you break an unwritten rule, it's just as bad as if you break a written rule. So some of the unwritten rules were you couldn't be seen together. Everything had to be, you were dating someone with what they would
like
used
an
to say.
arranged marriage.
Exactly. You're dating with a view to marriage. So once you were almost ready to get engaged, that's when you could come out of the closet and say, we're dating. And there was a process, and I'll get to the process of what that process looks like, because it's very specific.
Oh my God, y'all could never date on, that could never be like an online thing. It's just insane.
This is 19...
I mean, how did anybody ever meet anyone? I guess you said one parent that introduced their child of age to someone that they thought was good looking, or to a family. It's just like arranged marriages.
Yeah, well, and that was one of the reasons that caused me to wake up from the cult, was because I did the math. And I went to the elders and I said, look, here's the math. How am I supposed to get married? There's literally no one. Everyone between 17 and 21 is already married, and the only ones that left are like the dregs of society. And just do the math. There's no one for me. So you're basically telling me that I have to be alone for the rest of my life, and I'm 23 years old, and I have to accept that. And that was the first thing that caused me to question my faith.
Yes.
I'd never questioned my faith up until that point, and then I started to question. So it was dating that actually caused me to eventually wake up and leave the cult. So we started dating in secret. Nobody knew. Our families knew. I met his family. He met my mom, and we would go out with our families. You always had to be chaperoned. There was always a chaperone there. It's like so.
No sneaky kiss on that one.
In 1995, we always.
What about
had
if
to
you
have a
held
chaperone.
hands?
You could do that, but no one
No
could see
kissing.
you. No kissing.
Good Lord.
Oh my God! But he was a good kisser, because we eventually kissed, and then he would feel guilty and come at me because we kissed. He would feel like he had sinned against God because we kissed, and I was like,
oh my God,
that's wild. So we went. This is a series of 2 dates. One really great date and one absolutely horrible date.
Okay, so tell me about the good date and then the bad.
So the good
Same guy,
who was on my level spiritually, who was at the same level that I was in the cult. So we were a good match. Everything about it was good. And so he had bought tickets to see The Cure.
Yes, my kind of guy already. I would be all over that.
Right? And it was in Salt Lake City.
Love The Cure.
Love The Cure. And we could not find a chaperone. For the life of us, we could not find a chaperone.
So you're like, screw this, we're going to go alone.
No. My mother went with us.
Although I will say, if my daughter got concert tickets, I would go and chaperone. That would be fun.
Yeah. So we went to The Cure with my mother, And it was in like, I can't even remember the name of the stadium, but it was really nice. We had seats. We were kind of far away from the stage. And my mom, because my mother always, even though she's a toxic, we've had conversations, she's very toxic and narcissistic and has her issues. But one of the things is she's always loved good music. And The Cure is good.
It is good music. It's
yeah, such good music. So
amazing.
She was like, "Oh, I love this," and she was dancing, and she had a great time, and we all had a great time at listening to The Cure. We were not crowded. We were not, because I have issues with large crowds, and so it was just a wonderful night. And he was like, I love your mother, and this is so wonderful, and we just had the best night ever.
Good.
So he, in his simple cult brain, was like, I'm going to replicate this, but with my parents. Now,
problem number one, introduce a parent. Now you got to do the second group of parents.
Two parents.
Oh, God.
Two
So he brought his mom and dad?
Mom and dad.
So not your mom wasn't invited this time?
No. No, I had already met his parents, and they were cool with me, and they were cool with my level in the cult. And so...
Were they part Jehovah's Witness too?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So they're like this?
Yeah. And he was like 5th generation. So my mother converted for religious beliefs and then raised me super Jehovah's Witness. But he was like 5th generation, like super, like his whole family, everybody.
Yeah. I met family members like that when I lived out there.
Yeah, they weren't
Jehovah's Witness, but they were another religion.
Yeah, his parents were born in, his grandparents were born in. They were all super Jehovah's Witnesses, crazy stuff. So let me take a sip of wine.
Yeah, go ahead. Please do. I think you need it on this one.
Yeah. So, and his parents were a little older also. My mom had me when she was like 19. And so my mom was younger at the time. His parents were a little older. And he wanted to replicate the night where we went and saw The Cure. Now, the only reason my mom came was because we couldn't find a chaperone.
She was the only chaperone.
She just stepped in. But he orchestrated this whole night of us with his older parents going to see. Now, and since we talked about doing this, for the life of me, I cannot remember the band. But what I remember is that it was a Riot Girl mid-90s punk band that we went and saw.
Not Joan Jett.
No.
Not Sinead O'Connor.
No. It was like a...
Not Alanis Morissette?
Mm-mm. Because it was in a small venue. It was freezing cold. It was miserable.
Now, wait a minute. What's the song?
I can't even remember. The night was so bad.
And it was a chick band that she was like... Okay, now you're going to make me think about this.
Yeah, I cannot remember.
But anyway, so you obviously knew some music. You knew some music from her, yes?
I don't remember.
But at the time she did. At the time you did.
Yeah.
At the time you were like, let's
go see this. So we started and we had dinner. We went to like an Applebee's or someplace like that, right? And he opens the menu and he goes, "Oh, this is so expensive." He says that. This is so expensive, in the complete jackass way. And so in my mind, I'm thinking, wow, this is so expensive. I need to order something really small and really cheap.
Yeah.
So I ordered something off of the appetizer, and then his dad ended up paying for the meal. So for him to come in and go, "Oh, this is so expensive," was just such a bullshit.
That is a turn off. That is a major turn off.
Major, because I remember, I can't remember the band, but I could remember.
Was it your idea to go to that restaurant, or was it his?
It was his.
See, so they didn't need to say a word.
Exactly.
You should. I mean, these days, that was before the internet.
Mm-hmm.
So now everybody knows better. If you're going to invite a lady to an expensive restaurant, you look at the menu and find out what you're getting yourself into.
But it was like an Applebee's, so it wasn't even that expensive. It was not even.
That's when you could all four eat for $50 because you're not even drinking alcohol.
No, we were not drinking alcohol. That's true.
It could have been $30. Oh, give me a break.
So I ordered the smallest thing on the appetizer. So we left dinner and I was starving already. So we get to the venue.
I've been like, I want a burger.
I know. So we get to the venue and they're not letting people in. So we had to stand outside in the cold. His older parents with all of these young punk rockers that were there standing in line to get into the venue.
Yeah.
And his parents were just so uncomfortable. They were so uncomfortable.
Was it Till Tuesday? What's the name of that group where voices carry?
No.
Okay, see, now I'm going to be distracted with this. I'm trying not to focus anymore. Okay, go ahead. Sorry. So they were uncomfortable.
They were so uncomfortable.
Which made you uncomfortable.
Yeah. And made him uncomfortable because they didn't want to be there.
God, I know. Why are you there?
Like, why would you go see like some punk band, some girl punk band? Just crazy. And so we get inside and there's no chairs. It's just a concert hall. That's it. A concert hall.
So it was like one big mosh pit. They're trying to do that because that's what everybody used to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. And so the band starts playing and it's super loud and it's punk rock and it's...
I would be like, y'all can stand right over there. You can see us.
So we like stood over to the side. It was torture. It was like the worst night of my life. Even to this
Sounds
day,
cringy.
it was the worst night of my life. His parents were so angry and so annoyed.
And then when did y'all leave? Was it late?
No, we left like halfway through because it was like...
It was just so awkward.
It was too much.
When it ruined the night.
Completely. Like the whole night was... And I was starving. It was freezing cold. And we were listening to punk rock with an older, boomer parents and who had been raised in a cult. They're fourth generation cult members.
No.
It was.
That's not a good matchup at all. So did y'all?
Terrible.
So how did y'all end the night?
I just left.
And that was before Uber.
Yeah, we got to my car and I just left. I was like, that was an embarrassment. Like, you embarrassed me.
Oh my God.
Like, I can't believe you did this. And he was like, I was just trying to see my parents were cool like your mom. Like, my mom is not cool. That's the last thing we could ever say. My mother is crazy, but she likes music. So even my mother would have been okay at that punk rock music because she likes music. And as long as you had talent musically, she could appreciate like kind of every kind of music. That's just who she was. Very few people are like that.
Right. And well, punk is it's its own genre for a reason. Doesn't always cross over. Billy Idol would be considered in some stages as punk.
Yeah.
But then he made the stripper scene and then everybody thought, oh, he must be great. And then Billy Idol made the pop rock scene, right? But for a while there was kind of punk rock.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it just depends on if their music can flow. But if that band couldn't do that, I could see where that would be.
And it was a small venue.
And it's a lot for me too. I don't, if some music I just can't handle. It's too, like some speed rock, no.
Yeah. But they were just miserable. It was a nightmare.
And that made your night. So did you ever go out with him again? Money question. Because we have talked that we can't share one of my stories, which is okay. But what the money question is, did you go out with them ever again?
I think I did, but we broke up shortly after that. So that was not the last straw, but it was very close to being it. And then part of the coming out to say, I'm dating this person and we are official and we're dating with a view to marriage. Very careful, you have to say that. We are dating with a view to marriage. You had to go to a place and sit together. That was it. That's all you had to do. You had to go to a wedding, to a convention, to a major event and sit together. That's it.
So look like you're a couple.
Yep. And if you accidentally sat next to a single guy, it became like gossip within the cult.
Ooh.
Like, you had to be very careful. So if you accidentally sat next to, just completely randomly, next to a single guy, you would have to move, or he would have to move, because people would immediately start gossiping and talking about it. It was crazy. So we had said, okay, we are official. This is a couple weeks after this horrible date. We are official. We're going to go to a wedding. We're going to go together, and we're going to sit together. And then he didn't show up for the wedding. He didn't show up.
That's how you knew it was over.
That was it.
Well, if it could just be that easy.
That was it. And then I woke up, and now I'm free.
Could you imagine?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
All these weird rules, and And the cult has changed so much that I don't even know if those rules are still.
You know, they probably have changed with the times because it's not realistic to be married to someone and not have the normal steps of getting to know someone. You have to do some things. It's only natural.
Yeah, yeah.
Holding hands.
Yeah.
Kiss, just not even French kissing. Kissing on the lips. Holding each other. Hugging.
To see if you're
putting your
compatible,
arms on each
right?
other.
Yeah.
Yes.
Are you compatible? And we had no way of knowing whether we were.
I mean, that's the demise for any marriage, really, is if you don't do those magical steps to build some kind of interest, other than I have never been with someone and I guess TikTok,
You're it.
I better hurry up and do it. That's very sad. Well, I'm sorry that you had that experience. But I'm glad you're out.
I'm out. Yeah.
Yay!
I'm out. And I think it's because of him. Like,
Yeah.
it was that experience that led me to being where I am today. So super thankful that he was a terrible date.
That's right. It sounds like a
Bad date.
Plug the name of your show again.
It's called The Redacted Apostate. And we discuss cults, and specifically where cults intersect with true crime. So if there's a cult that has done something and they're on trial, that I cover a lot of that stuff.
Isn't that amazing? So cheers to you. Thank you for being on my show.
Yeah, I love it.
And stay tuned for more Good Dates Gone Bad.